Good morning, everyone. We'll go ahead and get started. A copy of the Open Meetings Act is located on the north wall of the legislative chambers. Please stand for the Pledge of Allegiance.
I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
We'll begin with the agenda for the Douglas County Board of Equalization. Roll call, please.
Commissioner Boyle, Commissioner Duda, Commissioner Kraft, Commissioner Morgan, Commissioner Rogers, Commissioner Tusha.
Here.
Madam Chair.
Here. Item A, approval of the minutes of Board of Equalization meeting held Tuesday, August 2nd, 2011. Item B, call for a meeting and set Tuesday, August 16th, 2011 as date for hearing on certified assessment corrections reflecting the addition of omitted property to the tax rolls or increased value on property.
Motion to approve A and B.
Any questions or comments? Please vote.
Motion passes.
Citizen comments. Is there anyone in the chamber wishing to speak to the Board of Equalization about an item not on the agenda? Seeing none, we'll move to resolutions. We'll take D, E, and G, and then we'll take F separately.
Motion approved.
Any questions or comments? Please vote.
Just a moment, please. Okay. Motion passes.
Item F is a resolution setting the final 2011 real property valuations for all residential and commercial property protests that were reviewed by Douglas County Board of Equalization and its referees. Do you want to have someone come up and give a summary of, are one of the referees ready to do that, or do you want to do that? Okay, please do.
This year, we reviewed roughly 5,195 filed protests. We had over 20 referees and 3 coordinators working throughout the course of the process, and to be able to provide the information to the board with their recommendations roughly 11 days prior to this meeting. They were often working late into the night and over the weekends. My thanks goes out to all the referees and coordinators. The assessor's office did an exceptional job this year providing the team of referees with the information they needed to review the properties, and standing with the referees the entire time. There were dozens of members of the clerk's office that were assisting us throughout the whole process. I'd like to thank assessor's office, clerk's office, and everybody involved. I do have Rick Coder, John Stevens, and Chris Musto, the 3 coordinators who oversaw the process. They're present with us today, and if the board has any questions before we take any comments from the public, they're here today and ready to provide any useful information.
Thank you. Commissioner Boyle?
Yes, I also want to thank all the folks that Rick did. It's been a really terrific job. But I do have some questions that I wanted to ask the folks that were in charge of the final figures. And it dealt mostly with, the problem that I've had. I don't know if anyone else does, but the volume with which we receive the decisions is pretty pretty overwhelming. And so I did ask for a breakdown of everyone who received at least a 20% reduction, and it was helpful to look at some of those. One of the things that I noticed was there were properties that were listed, they were reduced because it was described as a distressed sale. And I wanted to talk about that and ask a couple questions, if I could, about that. Would one of you gentlemen come to the podium? That'd be great.
Good morning. Rick Coder, 5621 North 141st Circle.
Morning.
Thanks, Rick. The question that I had was when a property was a homeowner came in, let's talk about private residences. If a homeowner came in and said that the property, he or she purchased it and it was a distressed sale, what happened next? What did your folks do?
We kind of backtrack a commissioner and see, was it distressed? Who was the title taken from? Was it taken from a lender, a party, a short sale situation? We'll then check and see, was the property really offered on the open market? In the case where it was, where the MLS had it listed, and they listed it for 90 days at a reasonable price, it didn't sell, and they sold it for this lower valuation. In those cases, in a vast majority of them, we would go with the price that people paid for it. Some of these would be a distressed sale. People are out fishing all the time. They're going straight to lenders saying, hey, you got any buys? Let me buy them from you. Well, if the property sold, it looked like it was pretty low price in the neighborhood. If there was no public offering, we weren't quite as inclined to go to that value. We might have come up with either left it where it was or come up with some kind of a intermediate value ourselves.
Okay, so were most of those reduced to some extent, do you think, or not?
I would think a good part of them were.
Okay. Well, my question really goes to how does that affect the other residences in the neighborhood? You know, we've apparently gone to this system, I believe, that you're able to look at neighborhoods instead of one person looking at this neighborhood and somebody else looking at another one, that you've got them all in front of you. So how does that affect if the valuation on that distressed property is reduced? What effect, if any, does that have on other properties in the same neighborhood?
That's a good question. It kind of depends upon the neighborhood. There are some neighborhoods where that is the market. There are so many distressed and foreclosed properties in that neighborhood. That's what's there, and the vast majority of sales are. There's other neighborhoods, everybody's got a couple of foreclosures. I do a lot of foreclosure work in my practice. I did $1 million house at Linden Estates. Does that mean Linden Estates is a distressed neighborhood and everybody should be lowered to that distressed value? No. If you're not picking on anybody's neighborhood, if you're 42nd in Nebraska, where there's a huge number of foreclosed sales, maybe that is reflective of what the actual market value is on them. So it depends a lot upon what area you're talking about, what part of town you're talking about. But one of our big goals was not to try to lower the whole town to a distressed level, because it's not.
Well, why not? I mean, if the home that was listed for $750,000 and ended up selling for $510,000, certainly that has an effect on its next door neighbor and the houses down the street, because I mean it simply does. I mean it's an indicator, and a darn good one, of what's happened to the value of those homes. And that's kind of what I was thinking, that it seems like that should have the same effect if you're really going to go with valuation and use, one house, comparing it, that it affects everybody in the neighborhood, not one necessarily, but that it begins to either trend up or trend down. And that really is my question. It's one that concerns me a great deal, because I think there's a lot of people out there whose probably their homes are underwater and they don't even realize it.
First, you're looking at the definition of what's an arm's length transaction. A seller and a buyer operating under with no duress. If you've got a lender trying to sell a property that's being carried on their books, that is a seller operating under duress. That is not an open arm's length transaction. You've got your one neighbor that's got your house that was foreclosed on or had a short sale. How about the other 20 houses in your neighborhood that sold? Fair market value, a seller willing to sell, a buyer willing to buy. It was listed for 90 days. They qualified. You can't drop everybody to that one low ball sale. You've got to take the whole neighborhood into consideration on it.
Oh, I would agree with that. But what I really am honing in on, I guess, is that if you have a subdivision of 400 homes, and 4 of them were distressed sales, and they were quite a bit below what you would expect, then the people who have filed protests, that those 4 distressed sales ought to have a lot of influence on what you do with the others who filed protests in that subdivision. And I think it's just like you say that if they all sold after 90 days and everything was hunky-dory, if it's not hunky-dory and it sells after 2 years, then I think they ought to have the benefit of that, just like they have the the problem with the higher. I mean, they have to pay higher taxes, higher valuations, and I think when it goes down, I think they ought to be treated the same way. That's really what my question is, and I appreciate your work. It's a very difficult job that you're doing, and you've done a great job. But it's something that I'm concerned about because I think that there are a lot of people struggling who, and particularly with their valuations, obviously drive the taxes they have to pay, and that I think it's a problem. But I think you've approached it the proper way. I think you have, and I don't have any axe to grind with what you did. I just had some questions, and I appreciate your information.
It's truly a dilemma this year, Commissioner.
Yeah.
It really is a dilemma.
Yeah, I appreciate it.
We do the best we can with it.
I know you are. Thank you.
Commissioner Morgan?
Rick, I told you earlier this morning when we met that I appreciate the difficult task you have along with the county assessor. I tend to agree with Commissioner Boyle and what he stated about it. And I think sometimes, we are where we are today as far as moving forward with what's come back to us. But at the same time, when you see short sales listed for 6 months or whatever period of time by a bank, and it takes it a while to sell, the 6 months, whatever it is, 4 months, I think those should somewhat be considered as far as the market value of properties in that area. As not maybe one sale, but as you see those sales transpire. And I hope that the assessor starts to look at that, as you stated, Commissioner Boyle. So, I'm hopeful that it'll happen. I also said earlier this morning, when you see property reductions of 50% or whatever when they're revaluing, especially commercial properties, I think we need to work harder to get more information from those people that are appealing, or at least make certain that we're doing a better job, because when you see 50% reductions, it seems like we should be better at doing that task than we are. And I happen to be a little bit in the real estate business, and I just feel like, if I was doing it and I'm 50% off, that would not be a good thing when I'm trying to sell Commissioner Boyle's home or commercial property. He expects us to be a lot closer. And I know that we have good people and they try to do a good job, and sometimes it's difficult, but I think the more information we can get from especially commercial owners will be helpful. And Rick and I have talked about that, Kubat. So we'll see what we can do. But I think short sales ought to be considered to a greater level than they are, because they are on the open market and in the MLS. So, again, we thank you for your work.
Thank you, Commissioner.
Commissioner Rogers?
Thank you, Madam Chair. I guess I want to offer another end of what Commissioner Boyle and Commissioner Morgan said, but more so, I think if I understand the discussion, because I don't know if there's a right way to do it, but I guess I would be speaking for a group of people in a new subdivision that was just built right before the financial crisis, and what we're arguing is trying to say the exact opposite of what you are, is that a few homes that some people came out of shouldn't reflect that, because I know, I can speak personally, I'm in a situation where I'm trying to refinance and I'm trying to keep it up so I can do it. So I'm not saying there's a right or wrong answer, but I know there's another end of the scale about, 6 months should dictate it, because I'm like, no, these are extreme situations and we're trying to refinance and get appraisal to get there. So I don't know if I'm speaking more so to the just craziness of the underwater situation and the mortgage piece other than anything else, but there's other sides of the argument.
I've worked in your neighborhood, Commissioner, and I know what you're talking about.
Commissioner Boyle?
Well, I would only add to what Commissioner Rogers said. That is another valid point of view. And if you look at, is it Ziller, the real estate?
Zillow,
I think
Zillow.
ZILLOW.com. If you go there and type in a zip code and look what's for sale, type in 68102 and you'll see condo after condo. There's one building in the near Old Market that has 15 condos in it, and 11 of them are for sale. And things are unraveling to some extent. And we're no different. We're not isolated from what's happening in the rest of the country or the world, for that matter. And what's happened, I have a friend in that building who went out and attempted to refinance and discovered that his condo was the appraisal came in, a private appraisal that he had to get the mortgage, came in substantially lower than his present mortgage. And so he's paying the private insurance and doing everything else, and he's gotten himself into a kind of a mess. But he did get a mortgage, but he's paying dearly for it. He changed from a 15-year to a 30, so he'd have more cash on hand. So in any event, there are several sides to this issue, and there's a reality out there in the homeowning market and the commercial market, and there are a lot of different points of view, and I don't envy what you tried to do, but it's very complex.
Commissioner, if I could just add, there's a lot of people that have their home equity loans, their lines are set by their assessed value. And we had quite a large number of them this year came in and said, hey, you cut me, I don't want to be cut, raise me back up.
Yeah.
So I mean, that's something kind of a new event we ran into this year. So I mean, you're right, it's a really a lot of legs on the dog here.
Push one button and two more pop out.
Exactly, yeah.
Okay. Thank you.
Thank you. No other questions or comments, other than at this time, I would ask that the 3 referees please stand to be recognized. We do appreciate the work that you've done this year again. And as Commissioner Boyle said, it's a difficult job, but we appreciate the work that you've done, so thank you. And also then have the BOE coordinators, you made it through. So go ahead and stand and be recognized for me, please. Again, thank you all very much. Good job. And of course to Kathleen and Rick, who do an excellent job of coordinating all of this, so thank you. With that, if there are no other questions from the board or comments, is there anyone from the public wishing to speak on this agenda item? Seeing none, is there a motion to approve?
So moved.
Second.
Please vote.
Motion passes.
And as we do every year after the Board of Equalization, we begin to look at what things should be changed, if any, for next year's BOE processes. And so I think, Rick, if anybody has any suggestions to start looking at those, and we talked about some of them this morning, so let's start working on those now and not wait till the last minute to get any of those changes in. One thing that I would like to do is work with the assessor's office to try at some point in time to have the comparables that they're using to set the value on people's property online when they send out the notice, so that people know ahead of time, you know, when they get their notice, here's my value, and gosh, how'd they come up with this value, and they go to that their website and the comparables are right there for them. I would love to move towards that, and I think that that would help also on the protest that we get. So again, let's try to think of those processes that need to be changed. Commissioner Boyle?
I was going to ask, I don't know if this happens, but I would like to ask that Rick be in touch with the assessor's office and the clerk's office, as well as our professional appraisers, to see what suggestions they may have to streamline things. If we don't do that, we probably do, but it'd be a good idea, I think. Thank you.
And I was neglectful to thank the assessor's office for their work during this process as well. Again, getting everything, the information to our referees and the coordinators coordinating it. Thank you. Next, we'll move to the agenda for the Douglas County Noxious Weed Control. Roll call, please.
Commissioner Boyle, Commissioner Duda, Commissioner Kraft, Commissioner Morgan, Commissioner Rogers, Commissioner Tusha, Madam Chair.
Here. Item A, approval of the minutes of the Noxious Weed Control Authority meeting held on Tuesday, February 1st, 2011.
Motion approved.
Please vote.
Motion passes.
Citizen comments. Is there anyone wishing to speak to the Noxious Weed Authority about an item not on the agenda? Item 3, resolution placing special assessments on the property in Douglas County, and there's a list in your packet.
Motion to approve and adjourn.
Second.
Please vote.
Thank you. I should let you make the motions.
Motion passes.
Agenda for the Douglas County Board of Corrections. Roll call, please.
Commissioner Boyle, Commissioner Duda, Commissioner Kraft, Commissioner Morgan, Commissioner Rogers, Commissioner Tusha. Madam Chair.
Here, item A, approval of the minutes of Board of Corrections meeting held Tuesday, July 12, 2011.
Motion approved.
Second.
Any questions or comments? Please vote.
Motion passes.
Citizen comments. Is there anyone wishing to speak to the Board of Corrections about an item not on the agenda? Seeing none, item 3, report from the Director of Corrections, Interim Director, Dr. Mark Foxhall. Good morning.
Good morning, everyone.
Good morning.
You have the my inaugural board report in front of you. I'm going to tick off a couple of summary items for you. If you have any questions, I'll certainly be happy to entertain those in a couple of minutes. Item number 1, I'm pleased to report that although we're 30-plus days into the new fiscal year, we're under budget at this particular point. Also like to report that the Omaha Police Department has paid 90% of their invoices through May 2011. That is a good thing. The audited balances through February 2011 puts their balance at $422,639. So they seem to be on track with that, and we're following that very closely. In our in-house programs, we just concluded negotiations with a new vendor for electronic monitoring. The new contract will reduce cost approximately 20%. We've got some new equipment, better technology, better oversight of the clients that we have out in the community. So this new contract will work to the advantage of the county. 3,000 hours of community service were performed in July by community corrections offenders. The community service numbers are up due to different events taking place in the community, and our population go out, clean up, participate, set up. So our numbers are up in community service, and we anticipate the community service numbers being up in August as well. Our priority prosecution program continues to go well. 48 offenders referred in the month of July 2011. 2,584 bed days thus far have been saved as a result of this particular program. Moving over to page 2, AC accreditation. As the previous director indicated in his monthly board meetings, the audit period for us is in October. We are on track to be well prepared and pass that audit. The dates are October 17th through the 19th for the main facility and October 20th to the 21st for the Criminal Justice Center. Our population, if you look at Enclosure 6, our ADP was 1,181 compared to 1,165 in the preceding month. Population's up a little bit. This is not unexpected due to weather, more traffic on the street, more arrests. So we've still been able to operate with at least 3, sometimes 4 housing units closed. So we've managed the population well, in concert with other things going on, pretrial release program, priority prosecution program, conversations we've had with OPD. So all of those partnerships and programs try to help us to keep our population manageable. This is a fairly short report.
Okay. Commissioner Tusha?
Okay, you're new, but not any different on my questions, so thank you. I do want to make a comment. I noticed that your staff overages remain low despite the fact that you have an additional female housing unit still open and your population was up. So I want to congratulate you on keeping that low. I do have a question, and I noticed the overtime is low, so I appreciate that. I do have a question, though, on 1A where you have the graphs of the exception times. I did notice that the sick leave and the FMLA were increased dramatically. Are those two correlated with each other? Is that why that's up like that?
Well, those are two independent graphs. I mean, FMLA, the Family Medical Leave Act, it could be. They could be correlated. So as you see sick leave go up, you're going to see a little bit of FMLA go up too. But really don't have a lot of control over that.
Okay. All right. Again, I see that the overtime is low. I see the absences are up just a slight bit, but not too bad. When you were talking about your new monitoring system, how long is that new contract for? And is that for both facilities?
It'll be it's for the Criminal Justice Center. It'll be 3 years with 2 one-year extensions.
Okay. And can you touch base, just real minimal, on how you were talking about how the technology is so much superior?
Well, the GPS units will be more real-time units, and we've got. I guess I have to go back to when I started in community corrections almost, 11 years ago now, and all we had was an RF monitor. And that's just a little bracelet that that you would wear on the ankle. Now they have technology that can detect alcohol in the pores on top of the skin. You can combine that with. We used to have sobrietors. The sobrietors weren't perfect. So we'll be able to do better alcohol detection, monitoring. The GPS units will give us location much quicker than the old units. I guess those are the biggest pieces of technology that we're pleased with. It gives us better supervision, and our staff know where the inmates are a little bit quicker in the community than with the old technology. And the reporting information is going to be quicker too.
Okay.
In terms of reporting alerts.
Yeah, and I do recall, and it might have been in the last 2 years, when we were up there, we were looking at the software package. Has that been upgraded to correlate with the bands? Or
Yes, it's a whole new vendor.
A whole new thing?
Whole new vendors coming in, yes.
Okay, cool. All right.
BI was our vendor for a number of years, and G4S is the new vendor.
And is that cross-training on that software program?
There will be cross-training scheduled week after next.
Okay, all right. I do have one other question, and that's on the GED instructor. I see that the person is on an extended leave, and you made a comment in here that if need be, you may borrow a GED program from the community corrections temporarily. So what are you doing in the meantime?
We have assistance from a part-time GED instructor that Metropolitan Community Colleges assist in payment of that instructor. So we have some coverage, and if the need arises, then we can shift Joe Steinbach from Community Corrections over to the main facility to assist the part-time instructor that is there now.
Okay, that's all I have. Thank you.
Commissioner Boyle.
Thank you. Dr. Foxall, I wanted to ask you a couple of questions. One is, and if you don't have the answer now, you can just send me an email or something, but I wanted to ask about when the medical contract expires. The reason I'm asking is that I think the cost is up over $4 million for medical care for inmates annually. And I'd like to have us look to see whether we could enter into a contract with one of the medical schools here in town, either the UNMC or Creighton University Medical Center, that would offer health care at less cost, and they could have the benefit of rotating medical students through our facility and so forth. It may be a good program, may save us a lot of money, possibly. So I'd like to suggest that and hope that when the time comes that the purchasing department will remember that I asked that we take a look at that, and I think it's Commissioner Borgeson's. Of course, I'm in corrections, but kind of overlaps into the health care a little bit, and she's the chair of that committee. But I'd like to explore that as a possibility. Do you happen to remember when it expires?
The contract is up in 2013, and in fact, we're working on a resolution and a board agenda request to request completion of the final year of that, or the option to complete the final year of the CCS contract.
Okay.
So that board agenda request and resolution will be coming to you in the next week or two.
Okay. Well, why don't I get together with you and we'll discuss that a little further and see what we can do to, if the board thinks that's something we should look at, we can include that in the RFP to see if we can come up with an alternative that may save us some money. Does anyone, I think it makes sense. May not, but I think it does. The other I'd like to ask is, at the end of the meeting today, we're supposed to be taking a tour of corrections, and what I'd like to suggest, and I was looking for the email, but I couldn't find it right away. We had some emails going back and forth about some of the problems in the lobby with short staff and so forth. And I think it usually occurs on around 6:30 on Friday night. And I know that's not an opportune time for us, but I think, sometimes when we go through the facility at, 1 o'clock in the afternoon, things are pretty hunky-dory. And I think we need to see what really happens when you get a couple hundred people showing up in the lobby trying to get in to see the people who are incarcerated. And so I'd like to suggest that the county board, whatever members can make it, that we talk to Dr. Foxall and find out what the best time is for us to see what really happens there, and come into the facility probably 6:30 Friday night, not necessarily this Friday, but sometime pretty soon.
Sure.
So I'd like you to be thinking about that.
You let me know what date you want to come, and we'll be there.
Okay.
Do you want to?
Does that preclude your tour today, or is that in addition to your tour today?
It would take the place of it.
It would take place.
I'll go with you Friday night.
Okay.
I'll meet you there at 6 o'clock.
Okay. That sounds good.
Which Friday?
This Friday.
This Friday.
Why don't you send out an email to the commissioners, and then they can respond back as to who's able to make it.
Good.
That's a good idea.
Okay.
I'll plan on it.
Yeah,
Okay,
good
same
idea.
here.
Okay.
That's good. And then one other thing I want to alert you to is that something I intend to pursue, and I don't want to blindside you, is the transferring of the inmate fund to the supervision of the county treasurer. It's a large amount of money, and I think it's approaching $8 or $9 million. And I think for the taxpayers, there's nothing going on that's wrong, but this is too big a deal. It needs to be under the control of the county treasurer. And so I'd like to pursue that and listen to the pros and cons about why it should or shouldn't go there, and then present it to the board so that the county board can make the final decision. But I didn't want you to surprise you.
Thank you, sir.
So those are my questions. Okay. Thank you very much. I think from what I can see, Dr. Foxall, there's a very steady hand over there.
Thank you, sir.
Thank you.
Commissioner Kraft?
Yes, and I think your point is a good point about the inmate benefit fund, but perhaps we could bring that into one of our finance committee meetings.
Oh, that'd be good. That's perfect.
Could I ask?
Commissioner Morgan?
I was going to just ask you, I don't want to make it inconvenient for you if you had something Friday evening, because we suggested it.
I'll change it.
You sure?
Absolutely.
No, I mean,
No,
we can go the
absolutely.
next
No,
Friday.
If I did, I'd move it. But
I didn't want you
since
to
I
miss
don't,
some
it's not a
family
problem.
graduation or something else going on or whatever.
Or if you're going to dinner at the French Cafe, we'll just go with you.
Yeah, there you go.
Or M's Pub, actually.
That's
Well,
even
then we will go.
We were done? Okay. Do we have a way yet of tracking the offenses? I know we were working on some new software and computer stuff, but is there a way to track why they're in there?
Yeah.
Well, yes, there is. Are you talking about misdemeanor versus felony, or are you talking about specific offenses?
Specific. I mean, I'm looking at the female population, which is increased, and a third housing unit remains
Yes.
open. And so what are the reasons they're in there?
Some of the increase in the female population is due to our female ICE population is up, and that's what we've been able to target insofar as that female population is concerned. It'll no real good reason that I know of as to why the ICE female population is up, but as the weather changes and as we transition into the fall, that population will drop. In fact, we were a few female inmates away this week from closing down that third female housing unit.
And so besides that, what are the other, I mean, do we know?
I can get that information
a
for you.
listing of
We can break that information down for you. It's not going to be as exact as I would like it until we get the new offender management software operating, but I can get some general idea based on the pretrial and sentence population that has come through over the past 8 months and get that information to you.
Well, again, I think a lot of the work that a lot of us do out in the community with service providers and different organizations that we sit on as the board of directors, a lot of things should be, well, everything really should be data driven in what
Yes.
we do and what we know. So if we have that information, that we would be able to go back to those providers and say, here's what we're seeing as a trend of why individuals are coming into our facility, what's out there that service providers are providing or should be providing in order to try to intervene early so that doesn't happen. And again, I know we had trouble in the past with getting that data.
Yes.
And so if we have it, there may be useful information that at Commissioner Boyle's correction committee meetings we can actually delve into it and really look at it and talk about it.
We can get some of that information for you. We've had lengthy discussions with .com. They're building our OMS right now, and we've specifically requested that we be able to provide the type of detail that you seek so we can do the types of things that you and the other commissioners are thinking about in the community. If we're able to predict who offends, who reoffends, what services we can target, where's the best bang for the buck in terms of this particular violation of state statute or that particular violation of state statute, then we can target our resources within the facility, and then we can come to you and say, hey, we need help out in the community. We don't have control over that, but we need help out in the community because this is what we're seeing coming in through the door. I think you're right on track with that, but working with that old mainframe has been very difficult to get that information out of. When this OMS system comes online, fully operational, I think you'll really be pleased with the data output, and we'll really be able to, I think, craft or redirect some programs to address some of the issues in the community, and I think have a significant impact on the population in our facility.
Okay. One last question on, sometime back I had asked that a medical report be included in this report. I know that there's one that's given on a monthly basis. I don't know if we need it that deep. I don't want names or anything like that, but if we can do a summary of the medical along with this.
It will be in the next report.
Okay. Commissioner Boyle?
Well, I want to follow up on what you said. That's an excellent request. Both of those are. Some time ago, I spoke to Senator Brad Ashford about the need to decriminalize some of the charges that send people to the correction facility. And it was reinforced on one of our visits. We went through there, and there was a judge that was conducting a hearing. And so we took a few minutes to look in on it, and there was a woman who had shoplifted a very small amount of personal products from one of the stores, Target or somewhere. And the judge gave her 30 days, and I think the amount of her theft was, $10 or $15. But he gave her 30 days of shoplifting, and there's a disconnect. Does that break her of shoplifting? I don't think so. I mean, there's a reason why she's shoplifting. There was no, it just didn't have a connect. So one of the things I talked to Senator Ashford about, and not speaking on his behalf, but he did say that he agreed that, they've some of the laws that they've passed that are criminalizing so many small infractions, that just piles up our cost and has a lot of changes in people's lives. So I really wholeheartedly support what you said.
I think the interesting thing about that is, and some of the senators get that, is we're not asking to be soft on crime or anything like that, but what they have to understand is for every infraction that they make a higher penalty, all of that is a domino effect down to the county and the local taxpayers that have to pay that cost, because that's what we're mandated to be responsible for.
Right.
So,
and one of the other things that we really need to continue to work on is people who, in another area, who fail to show up for court appearances, and then it spirals down, and pretty soon they're doing things like driving on a suspended license, and they end up getting all sorts of problems. They lose their jobs. It kicks in all sorts of things that, and then they have to go to Lincoln to reinstate their license, I think. So we need to figure that one out.
Commissioner Morgan?
I was going to say, Dr. Foxall, your suggestions, following up on what Commissioner Boyle said, are most welcome by us as we, prepare for the next legislative session. If you have some ideas, pass those along to our chairperson and let us know those so that we can have discussion with you, because you have a great knowledge, experience, and we respect that and want that input.
Thank you, sir.
Okay.
And just one thing, I have a community corrections background, so the things that you speak to, I think, are really on target, particularly if we want to continue to manage our population 10 or 15 years down the road. No, I certainly don't want, to have the director, whomever that may be, come before you and start talking about additional space because we're overcrowded. I think if we take the steps now to manage the population 5 to 10 years into the future, that director, whomever that may be, won't have to come before you and ask for additional space. If we get that OMS online, or not if, when we get the OMS online, we'll have better data to make better decisions on alternatives to incarceration.
Okay, great. Thank you. Is there a motion to adjourn? Please vote.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Motion passes.
I did good. I was. Before we start the Board of Commissioners meeting, I would ask that we take a moment of silence for the servicemen who have recently passed away, and they gave the ultimate sacrifice, and so please take a moment of silence. Thank you. We'll move to the agenda for the Douglas County Board of Commissioners. Roll call, please.
Commissioner Boyle, here. Commissioner Duda, Commissioner Kraft, Commissioner Morgan, Commissioner Rogers, Commissioner Tusha.
Here.
Madam Chair.
Here. Item A, approval of minutes of Board of Commissioners meeting held Tuesday, August 2nd, 2011. And item B, approval of claims submitted for payment processed through Tuesday, August 9th, 2011. The complete listing is in the office of the County Clerk Comptroller.
Second.
Any questions or comments? Please vote.
Motion passes.
Consent agenda, items A through H for a total of 8 items.
Motion approved.
Any questions or comments?
Second.
Please vote.
Motion passes.
I'm going to move the presentation. I'm not sure what date that'll be back on, but that's been withdrawn. I missed the citizen comments. Is there anyone in the chamber wishing to speak to the board about an item not on the agenda? Seeing none, we'll move to back here now. Committees. The Finance Committee, Commissioners Morgan and Kraft.
I'd just like to suggest, had some conversation, Mark and I are in agreement, along with the chairperson, that we start meeting quarterly and discussing what steps we need to take. I think we know we have some real challenges ahead. I know that our chairperson is appointed, along with all of the commissioners' appointees, members to the Blue Ribbon Committee that's going to be hopefully helpful in some recommendations, suggestions. At the same time, I think it's important that we start to meet maybe from 8 to noon, hopefully toward the end of August, first part of September. It would be my suggestion. And each of us come prepared to talk about and especially listen to the staff and their recommendations because of their experience and expertise on where we need to take a look at the cuts and what we can do, because we know that, and I've said it too many times, that we have some real challenges of millions of dollars that have to be cut next year if we're to hold the line. Plus, we know that our pension fund, because of what we've seen taking place, is really in a much more challenging situation. So hopefully you can get us a date that works for all. We can meet right here. I don't think we need a facilitator. Commissioner Boyle and yourself will keep us facilitated. And
who's going to watch me?
Me.
Oh, God.
Got it. And, we'll work hard together to really do the right thing and make certain that next year our goal is to not have a tax increase. Mark and I have talked about that plenty of times, and that's what we're going to do. Okay. And with what we see going on in the world today, and it's not just the United States, it's the world, we need to take this step and be a real example and a model for our citizens that elected us to this office.
Right.
So that's a recommendation. I'll look forward to a date. Joe has passed on to several of us that we have some real challenges ahead. We have a tight budget. He projected about $350 million in cuts on the tax, and I think it was $385 million. So that causes a little bit of a shortfall. Plus, we've got other requests. So we need to monitor that. That's why those quarterly meetings, I think, will be helpful with Joe's, Kathleen, and others' help on that. So the report as submitted, Commissioner Kraft.
That's it. Thank you.
Well, I just want to say I think that's an excellent idea, Commissioner Morgan. At the end of each quarter, I think if we really delve into the numbers and where we are, I mean, we get the report in our packet and we see it kind of at the 10,000 foot level. But if we take it and break it down and really start to look at where we are sitting, and then come up with suggestions or recommendations of, okay, well, over here we see that if they keep on this trend, this is what's going to happen. Well, then where is another spot where we could make adjustments? And I just think that's a really, really good idea and proactive idea. So we'll get that. Now, the only question I had was if we're going to do it on a quarterly, our fiscal year started, so it would be July, August, September. September, at the end of September would be our first quarter. So you would want it October. You would want it in the first week of October to look at the first quarters, right?
We could. I was just thinking what we might talk about late August, and maybe it's a shorter meeting, but I think with what Commissioner Boyle said quite a while ago about mandated services, unmandated, maybe to have some discussion and then say, hey, we're going to come back here that first week in October, the 3rd, 5th, whatever date you determine, and we work at it.
Okay, so we'll set one up for the first part of September, and then then we'll go on the quarter. And Joe, I'm kind of asking a question here in terms of at the end of the quarter, the next week following that, would you be pretty much prepared to really give us good numbers of what our quarter numbers look like?
Yeah, it would be within usually 3 or 4 days after month end. We should have that report available that shows how we'll be tracking against budget. So if we could do it, give us like 5 working days, then we should be okay.
Okay, great.
And Marianne, not to put extra work on the staff, I'm really looking for the staff to give us strong recommendations, and I know some of what they may suggest may be painful and not the thing that we'd like to be doing, but we have to do it. And when I was here a long while ago on the county board, it was easy because we always had the property value increases, and it was just kind of automatic. Today, it's just such a different situation, and I'm afraid it's going to get even more different, unfortunately.
Yep. Okay. Good suggestion. That's all for the finance, then?
Yes.
Next is the administrative services. Commissioner Tusha.
Thank you. This is for a bid opening by the purchasing agent regarding the sale of surplus lots in King Lake. Eric, you want to come and speak? And Bernie, you guys want to come and speak on this, please?
Eric Carlson, purchasing agent, 1819 Farnham. Good morning.
Morning.
I have in my possession one bid for the surplus lots in King Lake, received yesterday afternoon at 3:55 p.m. in the Commissioner's office.
Commissioner Rogers.
Are we doing this? Are we doing this just because of the magnitude of this sale, or why are we doing it? Just this? I'm just wondering.
Because it's unique.
Okay.
And we do have a bid security with and this is from Corey Scoville. And the bid he has sent to the board is $2,026 on lots 1406 to 1461 King Lake Edition.
That was the only one?
That was the only bid that we received.
Commissioner Boyle?
Did he meet all the requirements? Did you have to put a bond in or a
Yes,
check
he did
or-
meet the requirements. He did
Okay.
provide a bid security.
So next week then, we have the acceptance of those on the agenda. Is that how that works, Bernie? Okay. All right.
Yeah, Bernie and I will confer and take action on it.
Okay. Well, thank you.
Okay, thank you.
Thank you. Next is Human Resources, the weekly personnel report from Civil Service as submitted. If there are any questions on the report, I'm sorry, Commissioner Boyle? Was that
No,
from
that was
you had
last
your-
time.
Okay.
Thank you.
Legislative issues. Commissioner Rogers?
I just wanted to know, okay. I just want to know for the public note, but also not to add any additional work on Joe, but as of a meeting last week that the chair and I had, her suggestion was that the Child and Youth Service Committee and the Finance Committee should have a series of special joint meetings. One, to ask Joe and to get an idea of the cost estimate that we could possibly be getting shifted to because of some changes at the state. It came to our attention in the Child Youth Service Committee meeting, some changes in the pilot project of the Youth Center has been tracking the amount of money that they estimate to be lost because some of the changes in the project. Those numbers have been ranging, at least recently, somewhere like $40,000, somewhere monthly. Also, the change that would happen without a home placement cost in regards to the project and them no longer paying for it. And it's our thought that that number this year could be really big. So the suggestion was we should get together and have some joint committee meetings to try to lay out what an estimated number loss would be by the time we have the legislative dinner in November. So we'll be in a position to put it on the state senator's mind when the session starts up. Because our thought is, depending on where you talk, it's a good millions of dollars that we could be overrun this year.
How long do you think that meeting might take?
I think at the most we can do it in 2 meetings because at the most you can do it in 2 meetings because I think most of it would really be sitting down with the juvenile court staff and getting an idea of what those numbers are, but also sitting with Brad and getting an idea of those numbers. And then I think you would be able to get a good estimate of the number of what we may be looking at for a loss. And it would give you a chance to ask some questions, probe, and get who else relevant need to be there.
Hour, 2 hours?
It depends. If we can, I think you can knock it out in about an hour, hour and a half, one meeting to get the facts. And I think the next meeting would just be verified or giving Joe whatever time he needed to do to get those numbers together.
If it's okay, why don't you suggest a couple dates to us? And if it's later this week, Friday or something, or you want to do it, if Friday works and we're going to be down here because we're going over to the correction, if that's too soon, then, next week. But maybe we could do it Friday at 4 o'clock and meet for a good hour and a half and then go over to corrections.
I'll put a filler out and also ask some of the juvenile court staff that needs to be there with their time limit is and try to break it
That
around.
worked for Mark. Some others, let us know if that works and you just set it up.
I will.
Yeah.
Thank you.
And I'm game and I'm open for just about any time except September 9th.
Okay.
Commissioner Kraft, did you have anything additional? Okay. And the other legislative, if there are items that individuals would like us to start looking at now as part of our legislative package, by all means start bringing those forward because again we'll be getting ready for building our legislative package for next year and then for our senators' dinner as well. So if you have anything, bring it forward. the last item on this committee is resolution for approval of a one-year renewal of agreement with OPS and the Employee Assistance Program. Mr. Bloomingdale?
That's just an extension of the current contract at the existing rate. There's no rate increase, and it's for 1 year.
Okay.
Motion to approve.
Second?
Any questions or comments? Please vote.
Motion passes.
Do we have need for executive session for negotiations and litigation? Is there a motion?
Yes.
Before we vote, there is a Finance Committee meeting following this meeting in the Jesse Lowe Conference Room on the 3rd floor, and the Government Awareness in Room 903 at 1 o'clock. Oh, that wasn't on the agenda. Okay. Please vote.
Motion passes.
Oh, shoot. Item 2G1 has requested that the public hearing be set for August 30th. What was the... It was the 23rd. They wanted the 30th. So can we get a motion to set the public hearing for August 30th, 2011?
Second?
Please vote.
Just a moment, please.
Sorry about that. We did.
That's good. Okay.
And now we'll
Motion
go into
passes.
executive session
Go into executive session.
for negotiations and litigation. Please vote.
I got you.
think we could resolve it if Bernie advises us.
Motion to reconvene and adjourn. Is there a second?
Catch it here.
Vote.
Catch PJ.
Before they have offices.
Motion passes.